This is the episode where I tell you why you don't have to lose any sleep over this contingent staking issue. You know what the greatest strength of Cardano is? It's that the architects had an uncompromising commitment to certain first principles, no matter the cost. These included things like decentralization, security, being open source, and maybe most importantly, self governance. It defies the conventional wisdom, but self governance is actually rare in crypto. The norm is actually something closer to informal consensus. And guess what? You and I aren't a part of those elite consensus groups. In Cardano, we actually get self rule instead of oligarchy by core dev. That makes Cardano like a beautiful color changing octopus, able to roam anywhere in the ocean with the ultimate capacity for adaptation. If we need to look like coral, we can look like coral. If we need to look like sand, we can do that too. Cardano will end up being whatever we vote it to be. We can adapt to anything, and not everybody in crypto can say that. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss why you don't need to worry about contingent staking, the ongoing Operation Chokepoint activities, Hester Peirce's rebuttal to the new custody rules, the proposed new custody rules at least, some rumors about who's pushing all this and why, and a painful report on the possible immediate future for Binance. If you immediately noticed that this octopus is sporting a very small and tasteful Cardano tattoo, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Earlier today, I was on a podcast with Patty and Paul. You can go over and check that out on the Cardano with Paul channel. We had a good discussion about this topic and many others. But here's why I think you don't really need to lose any sleep over this contingent staking issue. So I think there are only a certain number of things that can happen here. So we can either have a vote at some point after SIP 1694 and Voltaire, which is self-governance, comes into being. At some point after that, we'll either have a vote about contingent staking or we won't. And the way it looks, if Cardano Twitter and Cardano social media are kind of representative of how the community would actually vote in a vote like that, it looks like we would vote contingent staking down because people are afraid of contingent staking being that slippery slope toward KYC at the base layer of anybody who wants to participate in proof of stake as a delegator. I don't think it's really a pressing issue at this point because we'll either have that vote at some point after Voltaire or we won't. But let's say we have the vote and we vote it down, or we just never get around to voting on it. Another thing that may or may not happen and may happen at any point in the timeline is that US regulators or other regulators, some coalition of regulators, who knows, maybe it's a gigantic coalition of regulators, maybe it's the US, Canada, Europe, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Australia, New Zealand. Maybe it's everybody, all of the allies of the Western democracies. Maybe they all get together and they eventually make their way to Cardano. That would mean they've probably addressed whether or not they can control KYC in Bitcoin, whether or not they can enforce KYC in Ethereum, whether or not they can enforce KYC across all of DeFi. They probably go through, a lot of that before they ever get around to Cardano. But let's say they get around to Cardano. They come to us and we've either voted no on contingent staking or we've just never gotten around to voting on it. But, regardless, we just don't have contingent staking. So we have no way to enforce KYC, collect that KYC data. The regulators come to us and they say, hey, all of the stake pools within our jurisdiction, whether it's just the US or it's the US and a bunch of other countries, all the stake pools within the jurisdictions of these countries, you can no longer validate transactions because bad guys, people we regard as bad guys, human traffickers, narco traffickers, terrorists, rogue state actors, they're all doing economic transactions using your blockchains, and we don't like it. So you guys cannot validate these transactions anymore because you don't have a way to KYC. And if you do validate the transactions, we know that these sort of blacklisted people, these blacklisted actors are going to be doing those transactions. So you can't do it anymore. So then those stake pools will basically not have a set of options. Their option is just to quit being stake pools. There's not really this option where, the person running the SPO running that stake pool moves to Bali and becomes some kind of crypto nomad and, just tells the US that they're going to continue running their stake pool, and the US can't do anything because now they're in Bali. That's not the way it works. The US will if you're a US citizen, if you go to any country where the US has any influence whatsoever, they're going to reach out and get you if they care enough about you. You're not going to be able to use your passport, so you won't have a passport. Maybe you're a dual citizen or something like that, but they're very good at being able to reach out internationally and get a hold of people. So this fictional choice of moving to Bali and being a crypto nomad and running your stake pool from there, it's not actually going to be a choice that many people at all are going to make. Not very many US stake pools are going to go the outlaw path and just go be outlaws somewhere thinking the US can't reach them. That's not going to happen. So all the stake pools, let's say it's just US regulators, all the US stake pools go away. Then we're going to have a choice. The ecosystem will have a choice. We'll look at how many stake pools we lost, and we might say, hey, that's cool. We've still got plenty of stake pools. We started with 3,000. Now we have some other number that we're still comfortable with. This is still enough stake pools for us. We're just going to continue running the chain as is. No KYC. Everything's good. The US can, hate our blockchain, and we've got plenty of validators outside of their jurisdiction who the US doesn't seem to, be able to reach. So we'll just continue doing things as normal, and the US validators will just go away. It'll be sad for the US stake pools, but Cardano would be just fine. Or maybe it's this whole coalition of regulators. Maybe it's all the countries I talked about, and we say, that's too many stake pools. Decentralization has taken too big a hit. We went from over 3,000 stake pools. Now we have whatever number in your mind is too few, whether that's 1,200, 100, 200, 1,500, whatever that number is. Let's say we go below that threshold that for you is too few. Maybe the whole community feels that way. Maybe we decide, actually, we want to accommodate anti-AML measures in some way. The beautiful part is Cardano, because we have this self-rule, we can be just like this octopus. We can change to match our surroundings. To if we're hunting, we can make ourselves look like coral. We can make ourselves look like sand. We can make ourselves look like vegetation. If we're hiding from predators, same thing. We can change because Cardano has this adaptability built into its self-governance. This is not the case in Bitcoin or Ethereum. I've held Bitcoin for a long time. Never once have I been asked to vote on anything in Bitcoin. The miners decided all that. The miners decided to which fork they would contribute their hash rate, their hash power, and my holding Bitcoin never entitled me to a vote. I had to be a miner. In Ethereum, same thing. Before Cardano, I was holding Ethereum for quite a long time, and never once was I asked to vote on anything in Ethereum. It is a small group of people who get to decide in Ethereum. You could argue Ethereum, maximalists would argue that, it's a process of consensus and the whole ecosystem's input is taken into account. But I was never asked once to vote on anything in Ethereum, and never been asked once to vote on anything in any ecosystem except Cardano. In Cardano, we have Voltaire coming. We have SIP 1694, which is going to bring us self-governance. So we have this capacity for adaptation. If it turns out that The whole world decides it can't tolerate. All the governments of the world decide they can't tolerate the unfettered economic transactions in crypto, and it truly is going to hurt our decentralization so much that the whole community decides, actually, when we took that earlier vote, we were wrong. Now, circumstances have changed, but we have this capacity for adaptation through our true self governance in Cardano. So we're going to just be like this octopus. We're going to change our color from purple to orange. Now we're in an orange environment. The only way to survive is by being orange. We're going to become orange. We're no longer going to be purple. But that's the beauty of this self-governance thing. When you're governed by a very small group of people, maybe a small group of, rotating group, maybe even of core devs who are all, because it's such a small group, they're kind of entrenched in their thinking. They want to go in a certain direction. They don't have this ability to pivot. They don't have this ability to adapt to changing circumstances as much as this organic, decentralized voting population. If the octopus is hungry and he needs to camouflage himself and he's near, something orange, he's just going to instantly turn orange, right? But if the octopus didn't have that ability, if he was run by a small group of developers who got to decide everything, they might decide, no, we're going to be green and we're only going to hunt where there's green vegetation. We think that's optimal. They might go in that direction for a long, long time and not be able to instantly change to orange color when they're near some orange coral or something. They might be less agile, but Cardano has this capacity to be very agile, to be very adaptable, because we have self-governance. Whatever the community votes, that's what we will become, because the architects of Cardano stuck to that first principle of self-governance. It would have been easier for them to just say, oh no, we're doing the normal crypto thing where we tell everybody it's better to have informal consensus. That sounds good to everybody. Everybody's like, oh, informal, that's better. We're sick of all the old formal institutions. We like this new informal thing you're talking about. But what it boils down to is not really self-governance. It's more like an oligarchy of this small group of people who are making all the decisions. We saw that with the miners in Bitcoin. We see that with the people making the development decisions in Ethereum. But in Cardano, they stuck to this first principle of self-governance. So we're going to be able to adapt to whatever is optimal, just like the octopus makes its appearance optimal, whatever's best for avoiding predators and, finding dinner. It's going to optimize its appearance. Cardano can do that too, because we have self-governance. That's why I don't think we need to lose any sleep right now over contingent staking. If it becomes optimal in the future for us to have contingent staking, the community will vote for it. If it's truly the optimal thing, I don't think it will be illogical. I think if it's the optimal thing for us, that's what the community will vote for. Do we need to worry about it right now? I don't think so, because the regulators aren't exactly knocking on our door yet. I think that'll probably happen at some point in the timeline, but that's when we can have that vote. We can have that vote then about contingent staking. I don't think we need to tear the community apart or individually lose any sleep on this right now. We can, because we'll have self-governance, we can optimize for whatever changing circumstances we find ourselves in the future. Speaking of changing circumstances, it looks like this Operation Choke Point 2.0 thing is really going on. It looks like there is definitely a very concerted effort to cut crypto off from banking. Here, Jesse Powell posts a CNBC article about these new custody rules proposed by the SEC. He says, step 1, require registration to custody crypto. Step 2, don't let anyone register. And that's pretty much what's going on. So he was citing this CNBC article called SEC Proposes Rules That Would Change Which Crypto Firms Can Custody Customer Assets. So these rules, these proposed changes to the rules do a couple different things. So they're basically saying if you're a registered investment advisor, if you are keeping the crypto assets of customers, they have to be kept with a qualified custodian. So the bullet points here say Gensler proposed amending federal custody requirements, expanding the rules to include assets like crypto, a change that would require crypto exchanges to gain further regulatory approval. The proposed changes would mandate custodians, including crypto exchanges, secure or maintain certain federal or state registrations, even as regulators are both increasing scrutiny on crypto companies and making it more difficult to secure regulatory approval for crypto products. And right now, entities like Coinbase are basically utilizing a state chartered trust type vehicle to custody crypto assets. But what everybody's really afraid of is that next, if they can get this through the process, and they're actually going through the normal sort of rulemaking process on this, where they propose these rules and then they allow the public to comment on this. And then after they get that feedback from the public, then they go ahead and enact the rule. But what everybody's afraid of is that they'll say, okay, if you're going to custody crypto assets, you have to be a qualified custodian. And then they'll come back later and say, oh, yeah, Coinbase, you guys are these state chartered entities. We're going to say that that no longer qualifies you to be a qualified custodian. This was proposed by a 4-1 vote of the SEC commissioners. And of course, the one vote against was Commissioner Hester Peirce. And she wrote a nice rebuttal here. You can read this on the SEC website, where she explains all the reasons why this is a bad idea. And I think everybody realizes now at this point, this is a very concerted effort to completely cut crypto off from banking. They're doing it piecemeal, kind of the way they need to sort of gradually cut off this, say that you have to custody crypto. If you're a registered investment advisor, you have to custody crypto assets with a qualified custodian, and then they could come back later and again piecemeal sort of cut down that definition of who gets to be a qualified custodian. And she lays out a lot of different policy reasons why all this is a bad idea, but the really bad idea is just trying to push crypto outside of the US for some reason. I think a lot of people right now are wondering why they want so badly to kill crypto. Why would they want to offshore this innovative new technology? And this thread runs down some pretty good rumors. The thread, the thread author claims, I spoke to a source who cannot be named. This person worked in Gov and now in the crypto industry. And they basically lay out, some pretty predictable rumors. They say this attack was green lighted from the top. It is coming from the Biden administration at POTUS, which is president of the United States. This is why you see the SEC, CFTC, and other agencies targeting crypto companies in parallel. This is why Gary Gensler is so bold and not afraid of consequences. The negative influence inside the Biden administration is coming from Janet Yellen, who absolutely does not like crypto, and Gary Gensler, who wants more power for the SEC and will give some of it back when regulations come, but will have a large slice by then. They say stablecoins undermine the Fed and banking industry's control of money to a certain degree. I've personally spoken about this, the thread author says. CBDCs are coming. The digital dollar cannot be usurped by stablecoins. Gary Gensler wants to be the face of this attack because he wants to build his clout and resume. He would like to get the Treasury job in the future. This is all pretty predictable. Bureaucrats definitely want high profile. They want to be able to do high profile things because it does create clout for them. Janet Yellen absolutely does not like crypto. This doesn't surprise me. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, having been around for almost a century, not liking crypto, doesn't surprise me. I'm not saying that age and not liking crypto are correlated necessarily, because we have people in the Cardano ecosystem of all age groups who very much embrace crypto. But somebody like Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, Janet Yellen, who made their careers in the fiat world and have been around for so long, doesn't surprise me that they have entrenched views about fiat versus crypto. They see crypto come along, after 100, in Charlie Munger's case, 99 years of making money in fiat. Of course he doesn't like crypto. Wondering why someone like Janet Yellen doesn't like crypto is like wondering why someone who's owned a Ford car dealership for 50 years doesn't like Tesla. Of course, they don't like Tesla. Finally, here's an interesting story in the Wall Street Journal, an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal that leads us into kind of a crazy rumor. So this article showed up sort of late this afternoon. It said the name of the article is "Crypto Giant Binance Expects to Pay Penalties to Resolve U.S. Investigations." DOJ and CFTC have been probing world's largest cryptocurrency exchange. This in and of itself is not too remarkable. We know there's been some really serious investigations into Binance. I think that's been mentioned many, many times. And it's predictable that the end result of this will be Binance paying some penalties. The really wild rumor, though, is the amount of those penalties. Some people are circulating some numbers on crypto social media, and the numbers are pretty wild. Obviously, we're getting into deep rumor territory. So I'm not representing this as fact, but it's an interesting rumor. So the numbers people are throwing around are these. They're saying the numbers that were discussed to avoid criminal penalties altogether, the amount that we paid as a fine, $1 to $2 billion. Can you imagine this? A $2 billion fine. The rumor is that a $2 billion fine could potentially be paid by a crypto entity. This would have been unthinkable a certain number of years ago. I mean, EOS had to pay a pretty gigantic fine for its ICO, but the idea of Binance paying a $1 billion or $2 billion fine is crazy. It'll be interesting to see how all this develops. I hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.